Hi everyone. Welcome to the next episode of That's What They Said. Today we've got another very special guest. In fact, I'm just going to accept his request already. I'm going to be live today with Paras Fatnani. Paras Fatnani and I go back in the day 2008 when I had joined. Welcome, Paras. Welcome to the show.
Yes,
Welcome.
Anand.
You are now based in the UK, if I'm not
That's
wrong,
right.
right in
Yes.
London. So this is my first international Instagram live as well. So thank you so much for making it, and
Thank you.
we'll be having a lot of people coming in through this. For this live session as well. I'm going to first begin by introducing Paras, and I did a little bit on my Instagram post very recently. But I'm going to reiterate that once again. I believe Paras has done everything that uh, a Bombay schoolboy or a Bombay college boy would ever dream about, or in fact more than that. Uh, Paras is my industry mentor, self-proclaimed industry mentor. I don't think I've asked him, but I still consider him to do that. Any kind of question that I have about in this industry, I think my first call is to Paras. Paras, he started off joining the best college for commerce, back in the day at least. Then he started a whole new club back in college. It's called GEMS, which is still working at HR college. Then after he finished that, Paras then went on to UK to actually study at the University of Westminster through a scholarship. He then worked with the Times of India. He then worked in the UK with the Times of India, heading their business development activities. He also headed the international business for Foxymoron, which is another live, media agency as well. He's now a visiting lecturer at his own university. He is doing an executive education from INSEAD. He spent about a decade, and he is the global communications and marketing director at QS. And that's not all. Paras also is an entrepreneur. He also runs Honey Twigs. Paras, how do you do this?
Well, firstly, that's too kind an introduction. I think you just have to, it's just things have happened. It's not, none of that was actually planned in any sense. So yeah, I guess, it's just how life is, how life has evolved. Wasn't that, there wasn't a specific plan when it all began, but, yeah, you just take it as it comes.
No, and one really cool thing about Paras is that he might be working about 36 hours in the day. He might he might have four hands. He might have two brains. I think there are two Paras Vatnanis, and he has a twin brother. And because he does so many things at one time, so I don't know how he does it, but I'm sure that there's a lot of learnings for us from your journey so far, which is why we're trying to do this live so that people know more about you. People get motivated by your story, and this is what it is. A lot of people who are on this live and also will be hearing this uh, uh, will also agree with me that Paras is the life of any party. He's the first person to get in. He's the last person to leave, and he's still up and running next morning, moderating a panel discussion, speaking to 1,000 students. How do you also manage that?
I mean, again, that was too kind a comment to make, but I think one thing that has been a luxury for me has been the ability to surround myself with people who have believed in what I'm trying to do, and I think that has made it easier in some capacity, trying to juggle so many things, or try and contribute to anything I can, and also at the same time not losing myself in that story. Um, so you know, being there with people you want to be with, you make that effort, and yeah, I mean, there's no rocket science, or there's no magic answer to that. It's it's tough. I won't lie. You have to make sure you prioritize what you want. and you will disappoint some people, but you will also, in that journey, be able to do what you really believe in, and that probably brings the better side of you out.
Fair enough. Um, Paras, in 2008, you boarded a plane from Mumbai to London, right? Thinking about back in the day, I think it's been about 12 years since that first flight that you might have taken, and life has changed. Life has, changed overnight. How, did you expect to see it go like this? What were your goals? When you boarded that plane, what were your thoughts in your head in terms of where do I see myself in a decade from now?
Um, I mean, being honest, there was no plan. The whole idea was to let every day to do something that excites you every day, and that excitement led to from one thing to another. It started from. I mean, there was a bit of nervousness initially, but I think what was the strength behind all of that was somewhere being able to conquer that fear that it's okay. It's okay if something doesn't work out. Um, and for me, I think that's one thing. Like from the day I took that flight, because till then I had never traveled abroad. I mean, I made a couple of short trips for work, but other than that, you never lived abroad for a longer period. Like I hadn't. Um, and so the initial bit, the familiarity of the people that were around at that time when I moved, that made a big difference. So a couple of people I went to college with, who are some of my closest friends till date, who are here, Mustafa, them, Farhad, like a lot of them, they were around when I first moved, and that sort of made some of that transition more live, like, and it didn't feel too much. I didn't have that pressure at that point of what is next. Um, and I think, to be honest, when I look back now, not having that pressure from family or from people, like that level of expectation of what's next, that just was a blessing somewhere.
Sure. Talking about some kind of blessings, do you have any regrets? Would you have, done something differently since 2008? What was your opportunity cost in, when you're doing so many things?
That's a great question. Regrets, no. Learnings, yes. I think anybody who says they would do exactly what they did is probably thinking about an experience in very limited fashion. Um, I wouldn't change anything, but every instance that something happened through those years or through these years so far made me learn how I would evolve the next time I did the same thing. And that's not to say that I would change what happened, but would I do it the exact same way? Probably not. I'll give you a quick example. Like, I think one of the things that when I was starting off, the idea of running a business was always at the forefront of my mind. So be it when I joined Times of India, be it when I joined QS, um, at each of these phases, it was always, you know, I wanted something that I was able to build. But at the same time, I was learning in these places.
Hmm.
And so when Foxy Moron happened, so I joined the four founders that are still there. I joined them as the fifth founder for an international business. And that experience of, being able to be in that group of people who were thinking very differently to the era that it was in was quite inspiring in its own capacity. Um, but now, if I was to run that same thing again, I would do it probably with all the learnings that I've had now. So no regrets. Learnings, quite a few. Um, and what was the second part of what you asked? Sorry.
Opportunity cost. What have you missed out upon?
So again, I think it's quite a personal thing. For a lot of people, it will be. I mean, for me individually, it was. It involved, like, now I probably have a slightly different lifestyle. I'm able to get myself to places I really want to be in without thinking too much. Um, but especially when you're starting a business, your priorities are tailored towards that. So your personal life does take a hit. and I think that's where, initially when I said people made the difference, having people who understand or who, uh, who are okay with your compromises that you're making, which impact them
Hmm.
around you, and for you to feel okay that you're onto something bigger. Um, I think that was a key part. So there is an opportunity cost. There is the initial periods, the quality of life, later on, priority of people or things that you want. You have to choose. I don't think it's a black and white on that. The choice is the difficult bit. So the opportunity cost are the choices,
Okay.
are the ones that you don't make, rather.
That don't make fair enough. On this show, we've had already about four odd entrepreneurs who've also come here. And when I actually, thought of creating this whole webisodes, the first person that came to my mind was you. Let me try and make this show based on what people will want to listen to Paras Fatnani. So, no,
No, but I have to say, Sharang, the the initiatives that you're taking, I mean, they're quite inspiring, even to a lot of us. I think storytelling is not everyone's cup of tea, and I think you're great at that. So thank you for for putting these things together as well.
talking about storytelling, Paras, yeah, we've had entrepreneurs in the past, and you yourself are one. You're the maker of Honey on the Go, and it's been growing at a fantastic rate. Tell us about how Honey Twigs started off. What is Honey Twigs? What does it do? Maybe people who are here on this live chat, all of for the ones who'll watch it later, will also know about Honey Twigs, because some of us didn't know about it. And now when markets open up, I'll be the first one to go and get some honey. So what is Honey Twigs all about?
So the idea behind Honey Twigs is to try and make healthier lifestyles more accessible to people. And so it all started with the simple principle that, again, from people. So I was with a very dear friend of mine who I studied with. We were just catching up in Delhi over drinks, um, and the idea, and both of us were foodies in our own ways. So the idea came off. He was already sort of working in the entertainment business at that point, but was sort of frustrated or done with it and wanted to do something different. And there was a common passion around food. And he was already piloting an idea around, honey. But we said, okay, let's understand why are we doing what we're doing. Um, so it began with, we don't want to revolutionize something completely new. We were not those people, but we wanted to create simple solutions that people hadn't thought about as actively. And honey is one of those things that is such a traditional product.
Hmm.
We don't think about it every day. We don't, no one's innovated in honey. The maximum innovation that's been is, from a jar to a squeezy bottle. No one's gone any further. And so we said, and then we went to people to ask them, look, are we crazy, or are there actually challenges with how you use honey?
Hmm.
And the thing came up, the three big challenges that over 3,000 people that we spoke to came up with is, one, the portability factor. So I can't carry honey with me anywhere.
Hmm.
The second was, everyone says 100% pure. What the hell does it mean?
Hmm.
And the third was that honey was such a messy experience. You cannot, every time you use honey with a spoon or something will drip because it's a viscous product.
Correct.
So we said, how are we solving these problems? And that was sort of the birth of Honey Twigs, saying, um, and we went through multiple iterations of the product. So what we have today is, after 3 or 4 trials of products that we thought, or iterations of the same product that we thought were good, and then at each time trying to do it in a better way. So that's where it started. The goal remains that Honey Twigs is one of the brands that we create, and the future of this is trying to help people live healthier lifestyles by creating simple solutions that allow convenience.
All right, fantastic. I believe that the last time when we met, which is about 6 odd months back, throughout the travel, you were mentioning that Honey Twig started off growing like Shoaib Akhtar fast delivery. For all the Britishers, let me look at it as a Jofra Archer delivery. And I believe that you are keen to actually get it into a Bhuvneshwar Kumar, controlling the swing and the pace of the growth. Paras, what is Honey Twigs today in India? How's the growth like? How have people responded to your brand? Where are you guys? In what shops, in what retail space? How has India reacted to Honey Twigs?
Yeah, and without trying to make this promotional and more useful to people who join, I think where it all began was, we started with retail. We went into the big supermarkets like Nature's Basket, Food Hall, etc. And very quickly we realized, we've been fortunate with organic growth. So we haven't yet pumped in that marketing dollar to splash the brand. It's been more organic in terms of people reaching out. So today, the segment that opened up very quickly for us was the food service segment. So for a very early young brand like ours to have people like Starbucks, Cafe Coffee Day, Chai Point coming to us saying, "Hey, we really like the concept," and the problem for them was that there was a lot of wastage, and they realized that this product was solving that. Um, so we went on to all the retail. So today we are in most of the modern trade stores in Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore. Um, and then we're growing online. Obviously, now is a point to sort of revolutionize that point of access. Um, and in the food service side, we've had tremendous growth with large brands that have looked at it from a convenience factor. So still very early in the stage, and I think this has given us proof of concept or a belief that there's something that we're doing which is unique enough that allows people to uh, to use it in an effective manner. But the next step is really to think about how do we move from here. We've got the proof of concept, and like most other companies, when you get that, it's to think, can this now scale into something much more accessible or something that is more mass in that sense. So we're currently on that, which is why I've sort of made some drastic life changes. And yeah, no, it's a very exciting phase.
Fantastic. Let's move from now Honey Twigs and let's talk a little bit about QS. For all the viewers, if you've ever been to a study abroad fair, which is very busy and it's packed and it has a lot of institutions, we want to. It's more likely than not that the person holding the mic is Paras in your fairs that you've been to, and it's quite exciting for me because at those fairs you are the moderator and I am the expert answering questions for students, and I don't really understand that very well. Is that Paras is asking me questions and I'm sure he knows everything, but I know that this is for the audience. So Paras, how come you looked at the education industry back in the day?
So again, it wasn't a plan. I got into Times of India because I started education with Times of India. I used to work with someone at Z in India with the Z Cine Awards. And when I came to London, the initial feeling I had was I had a lot more time to hand compared to the schedules that we were used to in Mumbai. So I started looking at what else could I do, and then I connected with this person who introduced me to someone who is leading the education vertical for Times of India and was based out of London. And so that's where that sort of brought me into education. I spent a year and a half with them working with universities, trying to help them, create media plans. And QS happened, Times of India was a vendor to QS. So that's where the bridge happened. So QS was one of the clients in that sense, who we were planning a campaign for. And from that early time at QS, I felt the mission of the business was something that really aligned with my own ideologies.
Hmm.
Being able to do something good for for people who've gone through a similar experience that I had. And to be honest, if I knew 1/10 of what I would tell people now about who was studying abroad, that if I knew then, um, it would impact how I would live that time, right? So education really became a source of uh, it was an inclined interest towards trying to create impact within people's education and career choices.
All right. So, you've spent about a decade at QS so far, um, and now you head the global marketing and communications thing. So you know most of the universities because a lot of them are your clients, including the one that I work for today. Um, um, what is your view on Democrat on the decentralization of education? I believe there's a question by Shashank which he's asked. So what is your view on what's next in the education industry now?
It's a great question. So I think there are two parts to that answer. One is um, access to education is evolving, and how people have traditionally looked at degrees, given the scenario of COVID and elements that will follow from here, um, will change that. I mean, education to me, I believe, is a part of every growth journey. So what form it is in is sort of different. And I say this to people who I talk to who are thinking about MBAs or thinking about a master's program. Not everyone needs it, but if you think in the journey that you're at, it is the right point for you to learn something that you wouldn't have otherwise learned from your experiences. Then it's the best point of call for you at that stage.
Hmm.
So, for example, a lot of people who are probably from a very different background, so probably who come from um, an engineering or an arts background, who are planning to run a business at a larger scale, the speed of learning that you can get from a community of people who have either done that or are doing that at the moment is very powerful. So an MBA program or a master's program allows you to do that. It allows you to build that skill set further. Where I think some of this is changing is how people consume or learn.
Yeah.
Um, Given that right now, for the last 3 months, everyone's been at home, um, learning will not stop. But the factor of the mode of delivery will change, and what those programs are called might change, right? But I think that value uh, of that time in person is unique. So I would still say when I did it, I couldn't have asked for anything different. It opened my eyes to people and cultures, and the cultures bit today still drives most of the way I handle situations in business.
Hmm.
So it will change, definitely. Um, Learning will become much more accessible, but I don't think the in-person experience of being able to interact with people from multiple cultures can be replicated easily. So that remains a unique point of studying abroad or doing something in that space. But learning, yeah, how you learn will constantly evolve.
Sure. And you spoke about innovation in this particular topic. Going back into Honey Twigs, Yash Kotak had asked a question about e-commerce, and I believe you were trying to build a good e-commerce, setting or an infrastructure because obviously that has better numbers. What's your e-commerce strategy if for your brand so far?
Yeah. And so, like I said earlier, and you asked the question earlier about do I have any regrets? And I said learnings. And would I do something differently today? Um, I would probably have started with an e-commerce element being stronger than the physical element. And so today, where we are as a business is we're trying to think, you know, behaviors of why and what people buy online are different. So we are available on all the marketplaces, so like the Amazons and the big baskets, and many other likes of them. Um, but the ability to create a unique experience for a user on your own website has its own brownie points, so to say, or the loyalty that you create there is very different to anything else. So we are now at the moment investing heavily towards building an ecosystem that helps people look at those small changes that I was referring to in lifestyle and building that habit. So we are soon going to be launching two key areas within our portal. One, which goes back to the problem that we were solving, is about how do people know about quality. So we will be able to see from the source up how the honey comes through, and you'll be able to go on to any variant and understand how it's made. So the ability to know what you're consuming improves. And second is we're looking at a subscription model wherein it's not. I mean, no one today buys honey as a standalone. So we are looking to tie up with other brands that sort of come into that health category of so for example, what the two product areas that we're looking at is green teas or black teas with honey, as well as a health snack, right? So that'll be sort of a pack that we put together, which will be available month on month. But we will add nuances where people will get new products to try much more effectively.
Understand. Fair enough.
So that's where our e-commerce strategy is leading towards. To Yash's point, I mean, it's been a missed opportunity, and it's something that we're now very consciously working towards.
Another question from the chat itself was...
Sharan, your voice is a bit soft, sorry.
Sorry.
I don't know if it's the volume.
No, I'm just trying to fix that myself as well. Yes. So some other questions from the chat as well were about replication. Honey Twigs as a brand or the product today is almost easily replicable, right? How are you going to manage that risk of replication and then competition?
Yeah, and I don't think internally we always think about that, and something that makes us be more. It worries us sometimes, but also is something that excites us. I believe when people start replicating what you do, that means you're doing something well. And that's something that comes very closely from my co-founder who sort of, pacifies me every time I get aggravated that someone's building a very similar product. We've gone down towards the trade dress and trademark route as well. So no one hopefully can make exactly what we make. But I think creating a habit is something that multiple brands will try and do. So if many brands come into the single serve category, actually that proves that we have done something right and we're on the right track. I would worry more about the experiences I'm creating, and am I creating those experiences that are unique enough that someone still wants to buy my brand over another brand? Because at the end of the day, it's and like I said, you're creating a solution that people will try and replicate, but the experience is what is not easy to replicate. So if your product experience as well as your user journey experience is qualified, then I think that helps that. And also, I think one factor that we constantly look at inside the business is how do we keep innovating? So we launched, the product in food grade laminate as an example. And today we've moved to oxo-biodegradable laminates. So, being agile and nimble in terms of how you can fast track that innovation is something that's a part of our culture. And so bigger companies may have the money to do that, but the culture and the instinct is something hopefully that will differentiate us.
Super, fantastic. Paras, through the last 20 minutes of us talking, we've spoken about QS, we've spoken about Honey Twigs as well. I have been confused, or I have been jumping between both these particular two topics. So
Yeah.
from interviewer's perspective, rather, I am stressed about how can I manage both these topics properly in a 45-minute interview. But how do you do this on a daily basis? How do you manage your time?
Yeah. Um, that's I think the first bit to me is, the transparency and honesty. Um, there's no one at QS who doesn't know what I do. Um, and I think that has sort of been empowering in some sense, to want to do the best I can to make sure that I'm ahead of the game, within QS. Um, very quickly, just how I started QS, I probably started in the most junior role, as a marketing assistant. And the fact that, so all through this time, first I had an events business, then I had Foxy, then I had, and for the last 5 years, there's been Honey Twigs. At In parallel, I've managed to make sure that the impact that I can make on that business is substantial enough that growth in what I do is um, is tangible.
Hmm.
So, from starting as a marketing assistant to now leading the team, uh, there are, so like I said, the transparency and the people, the belief of the people that we can do it differently. And one of the things I tell all my team at QS and Honey Twigs is, you're not bound by location, you're bound by your mind. So if you think you can do something, um, and you will make compromises, right? So my days are, I mean, not 36 hours, but we're probably 17 or 18 hours. And that's a choice. I have made that choice to make sure that I am not compensating on either side, to a point where it's detrimental to any party involved. Um, so it's a thin line. I think, I've, on both businesses, I've been lucky with the people and the trust that they've shown. And at the same time, being able to build a culture that allows us to not worry about location and time. So where I am in the world is very irrelevant. Be it travel for work, be it travel for Honey Twigs, or being in London. Um, yeah, I mean, I hope that answers the question you're looking at.
Uh, let's talk a little bit about work-life balance. Paras, to have a work-life balance, what is, where does that come in your, let's say, list of priorities, for instance, or how do you manage to, again, going back to the previous set of the questions, because today we see young kids right after college go about think that I don't want to work more than 8 hours in the day because I go to the gym, I need to go have my personal stuff. I don't think you had that, at least when you started off. What is your work-life balance ethos?
Yeah. So firstly, just very quickly, can everyone hear us? Because I can hear you very softly, and I'm not sure if that is on the opposite as well. Can people hear us clearly, or is it just our phones?
I'm not.
Anybody? Just on a quick comment. Um,
Yes, I think it's fine.
okay, perfect. Um, so work-life balance. I mean, um, I think that's such a tricky thing in the position that I'm in. Unfortunately, um, it has been a compromise. But if anything that I've learned in the last 8 months of my life is, it's important to prioritize, your personal life too. And it's not. It's very easy to get lost in work and take it for granted that what you have is probably quite unique. So I would say, again, if there was one thing that I would do differently, is I would build a bit of that balance better into my own lifestyle.
Hmm.
It's something that now I aspire towards. I mean, probably that's one of the reasons why I'm making the choice I've made to, um, to be involved, but have a clear focus on one thing rather than two. So, for to the second part of what you asked, what would I tell someone who is now looking at opportunities as they graduate? Um, you can do multiple things, and there's no harm of that. And I've been privileged to be able to try and do that. Um, there comes a point when you need to make a choice, and for me that happened 11 years into my career, I think that always has to be a primary. Two things will, as much as you try, as a sustained lifestyle, it cannot be equal. Something will be a preference at some point or another. And if you are someone who has an entrepreneurial spirit, see, I was lucky, right? Because of the place I worked at, QS was very entrepreneurial. So within
Correct.
QS as well, I was able to set up new teams. I was able to set up new business areas. So it kept me excited. And I would say look for that excitement for someone who's starting. Um, and if you don't find it in two places, don't try and beat yourself over it. Like you don't have to do two things. Or you don't have to do multiple things. Maybe if I, from the learning I've had, it's better to do one thing really well than try and do multiple things and do it mediocrely. And that's where the work-life balance comes in. If you are someone like me who tried to be equal on everything, there will come a point in life where you will say, what is it for? And that what is it for, you have to have a clear answer for, because beyond the point, it's not sustainable. So you got to build better work-life balances, especially in today's competitive environment.
Correct. And you spoke about building new teams also, at QS. Chirag wants to know about some, some teams that you have worked with. What have been their strengths that, help you set them apart from the competition? Maybe teams at Honey Twigs, maybe teams at QS. What you look for in a team that maybe, some of our viewers will also try and inculcate within their teams.
Yeah. So, and I'll talk about both of them differently because they've been built with slightly different purpose as well. So at QS, one of the things has been to think, what is the business first? So before you try and build a team, define what the purpose of what you're trying to do is, understand what it needs. So I personally believe if the leadership doesn't know that, the team will never know that. So, and that's been a common thing across both. But at QS, the area of evolution rather than revolution has been the story. So we've evolved everything that we've done or we continue to do. So giving you a brief example. So when I first started, the majority of the focus of the marketing team was around events.
Okay.
And from there to building today what is, one of the largest teams in the business, but also a holistic B2C team. So it looks across all product lines within the business, within student recruitment. And what that does is it allows people opportunities. So the first thing was being sure that what we were trying to build, right? And then trying to put people into roles that were effective in terms of outcome. And give people, an understanding of what the expected outcome is. Because it's very easy to hire people and then, put them in a space saying, well, you haven't been successful or you've been extremely successful. And many times that's, defined by personality and character. But I think, if you're being very legitimate in terms of performance management, it's important to set those goals and have the ability to have tough conversations when you need to. The one way I've been able to build good teams so far is not being being vulnerable is okay, but at the same time understanding that from there what is the next step, and you have, while if it is a person you're having a difficult conversation with, making sure they know they have the support, but they need to up their game quickly enough. That's been a big part of that storyline. And in terms of hiring, I have an unfortunate but very peculiar trait that I decide on my people very quickly. So, and people who've worked with me will know that I probably have picked the person after the first interview. So I shortlist very quickly, because when you're building a team, you want people that fit that culture. Correct. And the first interactions where people don't know each other enough are the best way to understand some of that culture, that, do they fit into that or not. So that's with QS. With Honey Twigs, a lot of hiring has been driven by necessity. And that's what I'm looking to evolve at this point. I think the things I've learned at QS is my point is now to try and put that into practice, even with Honey Twigs in a full capacity. Um, so I spoke about e-commerce earlier. One of the things that I'm looking at now is bringing on board a pioneer and a young pioneer in that sense who tries to drive our digital strategy. Right, we want to be a brand that is digital first. Um, so so hiring for purpose and then managing by performance would be 2 points that I would say in terms of building good quality teams.
I think that's a good mantra that can go on my social media after this. I am going to make note of that for sure. Paras, what's next for you? What is the plan for you personally? What's the plan for you professionally? A lot of people want to also know
So I've been in a transition phase at the moment. I have resigned at QS.
that.
The place is very dear to me, and for anyone who I've worked with will know it's probably like a second family. Um, so it's been a tough decision to make, but it's also a decision I feel was necessary to ensure that Honey Twigs got its due after 5 years of a balancing act.
Hmm.
And I believe like if I want that to be the next big idea, I have to give it everything now. And there's never been a better moment than that. Than a point where health is a big factor of choice for people. I will, however, remain a part of. So QS recently has acquired World Merit as a charity. So I'm joining them as one of the trustees of the board there. And the goal of that charity is to help young people focus on sustainable development goals and to bring up more responsible citizens, which is something that aligns very closely with my own ideology of careers and education. So I will remain a part of that, but I will move out of the day-to-day running of the business within marketing and at large at QS. I'm moving countries at the moment, so people say sometimes that you should make one change at a time. But like some of my experiences, it's happened so that multiple changes are coming together. So I'm moving countries at the moment as well. I'm moving to India. The plan was to move in April, but unfortunately, due to COVID, it's on a hold. So I'll be moving, sometime early July. So change of place, change of focus, or rather than change of focus, pinning that focus rather. Um, and on a personal front, I think this is also an opportunity for me. When you get so engrossed in work, and I spoke about work-life balance a bit, and I think I'm also looking at this as an opportunity to restart some of that and build that better balance. So yeah, I mean, hopefully, that covers the points that you're looking for.
Absolutely. We've had a lot of people from different parts of the world today come for this. I believe, Paris has a global fan following. Obviously, we've got a lot of Dubai and from other parts of India as well, but we've got a lot of people from the UK, from Middle East. We've had a couple of people from Madrid as well join in. So this is just day in a life of Paras, where he is loved by people from all over the world as well. All these people also want to pick your brains in terms of having some rapid fire questions that I would have prepared for you. So let's try and be as rapid as as possible in terms of what is the first thing that would come to your mind. So I'm going to get right on it already. Paras, if you wrote a book, what would be the title of the book?
That's a tough one. Experiences and value of people.
Value. Okay. Okay. What is the one thing that you find true, but other people, might not agree with?
That entrepreneurship cannot be taught. It is more of a behavior, and that self ownership is something that is there or is not there.
All right. That's goes against a lot of people, which I completely answers the question happily. Paras, when you were a kid, what did you want to be while you were growing up?
I mean, so like a lot of people growing up in Mumbai, I was one of those guys who wanted to be a professional cricketer. Um, but very soon, life took its turns, and yeah, so that was my first choice.
And what was the most satisfying thing at QS for you so far?
Most satisfying thing was it's tough because there have been quite a few, and which is why I've been there 10 years. I think the most satisfying thing still every time I travel. I mean, apart from the team and the work that we do, the most memorable moments are meeting those students at fairs, or through experiences after where we interact with them, and they say what impact did those conversations have on decisions they made.
Sure.
Uh, and I feel that gives me a level of satisfaction, but also pride that you're doing something that's valuable.
It's a super tiring experience, you know. People would know it because you're standing and you're talking continuously for about 4 hours and trying and repeating the same thing. But those are some things that you do. What has been your most satisfying thing at Honey Twigs so far?
The most satisfying thing, when we served that first food service order. So our first food service major client was Cafe Coffee Day.
Okay.
Um, and when that, and again, similarly, there are multiple elements that keep happening every day that I think that excitement that is there should not run out. If that runs out, then you're doing something wrong. So it's a constant level of satisfaction that I'm trying to build with life. But that one moment, if I was to say, would be that first order that we serviced um, for Cafe Coffee Day. And the second thing would be the first farmers market we did, where me and my co-founder were both standing there, and people had good things about why this was unique and helpful.
Oh, fantastic. Paras, what brand defines you?
What brand defines me? It's a good one. I think Nike has been very close to me, um, because the ethos of that brand is such that there's constant innovation, or rather constant evolution. Um, there is a core principle behind the why, which matters a lot to me, um, and it's something that is a part of people's lifestyle.
Okay. Um, you've been an inspiration to a lot of people, including me. But then, who is your inspiration?
So a couple of people, and I think many of them have had an impact on my life or things that I've done. Apart from family, I think the founder of QS is one of them. The first guy who I worked with in the UK, who was the head of the education arm at Times of India back then. He's been one of them. I think I also look at motivation. Like the one thing that drives me, I think you asked this question before as well. And when I said people, it's on both sides, the people I work with or people I manage, but also people who, who constantly inspire or motivate action. And so I would say, there are quite a few. These two probably have had a professional impact. And in my personal life, obviously, a couple of my friends, but also, and I'm conscious that I say this, but also my ex-girlfriend, Mihaela, she had a big impact of how I do things.
Okay, fantastic. What is the one thing that you have missed about Mumbai?
People, and those 2 a.m. conversations and the emotion rather. I would say more than the people, the emotion. So
Okay.
yeah.
Uh, There was a question that had come up in the comments, and I just remembered that, based on your previous answer where you spoke about the founder of QS is somebody who also inspires you. What is the full form of QS?
So it's
Can you,
Quacquarelli Simmons. Yeah,
sorry,
it's Quacquarelli Simmons.
Walker Simmons. Okay. All right. What is the one thing that you will miss about London?
The convenience of life.
Okay, sure. All right. So I'm going to ask you, what's the first emotion that comes to your mind when I say the following? First emotion or thing that comes to your mind when I say QS?
Um, Mobility and inspiration.
Honey Twigs.
Innovation.
Okay. Lockdown.
Painful.
RCHR.
Lifestyle and lifelong friendships
Okay. Marriage.
to happen.
To happen. And finally, what do you think about Sharan Dhaimare?
So that may not be a one-word answer, but no, there are very few people, and I'm going to be very blunt about this. There are very few people who I think you can back to say that um, they keep evolving and they take learning as a pride of as a part of their growth without being cocky about what they've achieved. Um, you've achieved a lot, Sharang, and I think what makes that ability to be humble and being relatable to anyone in any scenario makes you a good friend. And I think you may have termed or coined certain names to the relationship that we've had, but to me, I see you as a friend who is honest and is real and is somebody who stands by people. So keep being that, and yeah.
I think the compliments have been returned very well. So I think that also brings me to the end of my set of questions. I think we've also tried to cover some of the questions that have come on this chat. So I want to thank you, Paras. I want to thank you for taking out 1 hour and more of your time over the last in last couple of days as well. Thank you so much for doing this.
No
Once
problem.
again, I want to reiterate for the people who are still watching is that I coined this whole episodes keeping Paras and his story in mind. So thank you for being that inspiration, and
No, and thank you, Sharang, for doing something so interesting in today's time for people who are at different stages of their decision making. And I hope these conversations are valuable to people who are looking at their entrepreneurial journey as well. So well done.
absolutely. Thanks so much, Paras. Thank you for being here, and I hope to catch with you sometime soon once you are in Mumbai.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sharon. Goodbye.
Goodbye. All right, that was the end of another episode. Tomorrow we'll be talking to the founder of IIDE, which is the Indian Institute of Digital Education. That's Sunday, tomorrow 4 p.m. We're talking to Karan Shah. That's another story from IIDE has already impacted 60,000 students across India. And they do a lot of online courses in digital education as well. So please come in tomorrow as well. Bring your next set of questions. Thank you so much for everybody who's joined. Thank you so much, Irina, who has come all the way from Madrid. Not all, she not had to come, just me online on Instagram. But thank you so much for making time. Thank you for all the questions that have also come in. And I will see most of you as well tomorrow. Thanks so much for doing this. And I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.